for this project to be successful. So one has to do with connectivity. So these projects need to be autonomous in terms of connectivity. They don't have to rely on some existing infrastructure that very often doesn't exist. Second one is low-cost equipment. That's kind of obvious, but expensive stuff doesn't have many chances to be successful. They have to be power resilient, so low power, and they should have an appropriate user interface, meaning that people should be able to understand what these ICT projects are useful for. And if you consider TinyML, from what we learned, it kind of fits all these requirements. So autonomous connectivity, well, these TinyML nodes don't need any connectivity. So even in places that do not have reliable connectivity, TinyML can be extremely useful. Low cost, we know these devices are low cost and they're becoming more and more low cost. Power resilience, well, that's the whole philosophy of TinyML, right? Having low power devices. So they're definitely low power devices. Appropriate user interfaces. Well, these devices have no interface, which is in a way an advantage, right? You need to design an interface so that the results of your application can be used by final users. So the point here is that even if you look at from an academic point of view, from the ICT4D perspective, TinyML is really, really interesting. So this is why we, and when I say we, I'm going to show you, the group of people, we thought that it would be useful to create or to foster a community of researchers and practitioners that work both on TinyML education and also on applications, especially looking at the challenges faced by developing countries. And so we set up this TinyML Academic Network, and the activities that this network will work on are workshops and seminars, such as this one, online forums, and we have our Discord channel, which now has more than 300 people, and the open exchange of student projects, lesson plans, and especially real-world deployments, so that people don't need to reinvent the wheel when they face a problem they want to solve with TinyML. So this idea of the TinyML Academic Network came out in a working group, which you can follow at TinyMLedu.org. And those are the members of the network. You met most of them. You will meet Hal today, but there's many other people that supported and joined and contributed. And of course, it's completely open. So if you want to join, please let us know. You're more than welcome to join our activities. So when we set up this network, we decided to open the call to universities where we know that there's already activities in IoT, in machine learning, or interest for TinyML. So we have 20 members right now. And you see the countries here. There's Guatemala, there's Colombia, there's Brazil, Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. There's Morocco, Nigeria, Benin, Rwanda, Ethiopia, South Africa, and Namibia. Then we have India, Japan, where we have a JICA Institute working on ICT4D. And then we have Malaysia. So this is the first group of 20 universities that are part of this network. So there's kind of three components that we think are quite useful for these kind of activities. One is providing training material. The other one is providing equipment, because we know that in many universities, difficult to get equipment. And when we're talking about equipment, we're talking about reliable equipment that has been tested and that you can use for your training and deployment easily, and the human networking. So when we look at the training, there's some training available. So we have the this course, you can see the poster on the right, but there's the EDX course, there's some Coursera activities, there's Marcelo, documents and tutorials. There's Edge Impulse that provides a lot of tutorials. So in some way that is available. In fact, if you look at tinymledu.org/teach, Brian put up this very useful table where you have, courses in different languages and which are available. So there is, the material, and there is some videos available as well. And if you have questions on how to adopt the material in your university, please reach out on Discord and we try to help. Second aspect was providing members of this network reliable equipment. And in that case, we have not been that lucky because, as you know, there is a shortage of electronic equipment right now due to, the pandemic. So we ordered a bunch of Arduino devices. They should be coming in November. So members of this group will receive the devices, I would say, in early December. Human networking, again, we have the Discord channel with more than 300 members right now. And after this workshop and, to follow up the activities, we will use only Discord. So that's our, preferred channel of communication. So thank you for, all the people that joined this group. So a roadmap, what has been done so far and what will happen in the near future. We kind of created this network in July of this year. We had this workshop now in October. We should receive the devices in November. So between, December and January, we will have, kind of specialized workshops about, setting up the devices. And early next year, we plan to have some regional workshops. So we can go a bit longer than the 3 hours we have right now. And we can do it, in different time zones. So probably one in Latin America, one in Africa and Europe, and the other one in Asia. But now the question is, what about the way forward? So what about, all the other, universities that want to join these activities? So we plan to have a call for 20 new members, probably in December, as we have some, additional funding to do that. But the question, and this is where I'm asking your, contribution, is how we can kind of engage people and continue the activities of these networks. There's a number of ways we can do it. There's, competitions. So we could, ask universities to compete on the most interesting and useful project. This would be one. We could have, students exchange. If we have, funding for that, we could organize exchange of students among the network members. We could have, advanced workshops. So maybe you're, interested in some more specific topics, and so we could organize some more advanced workshops. Or maybe we could have, face-to-face workshops, if you think that that is the preferred way to go. So I think there's a few more slides, something that Brian will present, and after that we can have maybe 10-minute discussion or 15-minute discussion on what is the preferred way forward for the network in your view.
Yeah, so happy Friday, everybody. Marco just asked me to talk a little bit about ways you can learn more about TinyML. And so I think the first thing is that we have the edX course. And as I was mentioning on Tuesday, it's a 3-course series. And it goes through that whole TinyML flow that both Marcelo and I have talked about. Course 1 is where you would like to start if you have less experience with machine learning, as it sort of digs into a lot of just what is machine learning in the context of TinyML. Course 2 then goes a little farther and builds on that and works through TinyML applications. So we do a little more detail into that whole keyword spotting flow that I talked about. We also do some computer vision, and we do some anomaly detection. And then course 3 goes all the way onto the hardware, and you do that end-to-end collecting of the data like we did with keyword spotting. But instead of using Edge Impulse, we're using Google Colab and actually the Arduino IDE. So we get a little deeper into the code, and it's in a little bit more detail if you want to dive deeper. Marco, if you could just click to the next slide. One back. But I did also want to point out that Edge Impulse has also now put out 2 Coursera courses as well. So if you really like Edge Impulse and you want to really dive deeper into that platform, they have 2 courses now so far on Coursera. I was going to point out the TinyML book, but Mark already got to that. I think Pete will tell you that some of the code now has gotten a little bit more outdated as the book's a couple of years old, but there's a huge list of errata as well on the book website. So if you find that a piece of code in there is not working or the link is broken, there's actually corrections for most of it. And then I just also wanted to point out that if you just Google Lawrence's Coursera courses, there's like 15 of them on all different topics of learning machine learning. And so if you are excited about TensorFlow, if you want to dive deeper into different topics and aspects of machine learning, that's another great way to learn more. And then I just want to do one more plug on what Marco was saying about the materials before. If you teach a course on TinyML, please consider sharing the materials or the course website or anything with us. We'd love to keep adding to that list and building it out and just making more and more material more accessible. And if you have suggestions for how to make the material more usable or ways to present it, we're actively trying to work through the best way to make it as easy as possible for people to create TinyML courses. At this point, we just sort of have the material up on GitHub, and I am sure there are better ways to do it. So feel free to get in touch and help us improve that. And then I think the last thing on the next slide is just I will send out a post-course survey link, and we'd love to get your feedback on the whole, I guess, post-workshop, not course, but we'd love to get your feedback on the whole workshop, what you liked, what you didn't like, suggestions and improvements for the future, so we can make these sort of activities more useful for all of you. I'll put that in the chat. I'll put that on Discord. I'm just finishing that up right now. So the link does not exist yet, but it will soon.
Super, thank you. So I think we have a few minutes before house talk. So does anyone have any comments on the way forward? So what would you think would be the best, more useful way to, engage people and, to keep this activity working in the most productive way? Start a podcast. Okay. A hybrid form of workshop. Okay. So Monday, what do you mean with a hybrid form of workshop? So having people in a lab working with equipment and some other people attending remotely? Okay, Sawa has a comment about workshop to solve real world problem examples, which I think is a great idea. So that means that you need to come up with a problem you want to solve, and then you build the workshop around that specific problem. And I like that. I did that for IoT training activities, and that has been quite successful. Okay, Mander said with course materials for pre-course preparation. So yes, that is something we're considering, right, Brian? So asking people to, follow some online material as a kind of basic introduction, and then diving into more advanced topics in, the kind of physical workshop. Okay, and Finn says all of them, which of course would be excellent. Okay, so I suggest we keep on discussing this on Discord, and so that, after the workshop, you kind of digest what you have learned here and you come up with some ideas. But I really like all these suggestions. So creating chapters. Okay, chapters is kind of similar to this, academic network idea, except that in that case, it's single universities. It's not, I guess chapters would mean kind of regional or at least country levels. Okay, and then financial support. Yes, this is what we're kind of trying to help by providing training kits. So we're planning to ship this Arduino TinyML training kit, which is something that I think VJ showed the first day, and 2 network members. But of course, to make it scalable, we need to think how to, manage this, because of course we cannot send, infinite number of training kits as much as we would like. Okay, an advanced workshop online. Summer schools, okay. Oh, a conference to publish TinyML articles. So Brian, do you have the pointer to the TinyML conference that?
Yeah, one sec.
Thanks. Okay. Working with IEEE and ACM, yes, that's also a very good idea. Okay, so Brian just posted this TinyML symposium, so let me try to open it and see if you can. So deadline is in December, so you still have few months. If you have, an idea or a project, and there is, TinyML dataset, application, algorithm, system, software, hardware, and evaluation. So it's quite wide. Okay, thank you very much for your feedback. I think we can move on